Voting is about to change in a major way. We've got two Supreme Court cases that we've been keeping our eye on. Wow, y'all, you better tune into this one because this is serious. Hi, I'm Melba Pearson, also known as the Resident Legal Diva, and I'm here with Kelly Hyman, breaking it all down. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Legal AF for all the things at the intersection of law and politics, and to follow us on socials because we stay on top of these issues 24/7, so you don't have to. So, we've got two major Supreme Court cases that are being heard right now. The first one has to do with mail-in voting. So there's 13 states plus the state of Mississippi, which is the state at issue right now, who allow for your ballot, your mail-in ballot to be counted as long as it's postmarked by Election Day. And again, we know mail-in voting has been very controversial. Unreasonably so, right? Because it's a secured process. You can't just willy-nilly, get a ballot and somehow send it in. Like the fraud that they're talking about hasn't existed, right? These are your service people from overseas who are sending in their ballots. You have people who are busy working, maybe ill. There are a million reasons why people use mail-in voting. But that postmark has always been the standard and makes life a whole lot easier. So now you have a whole chunk of votes that may not get counted if it's no longer permissible to be able to send your ballots in with a postmark of Election Day. So that's one. Separately, we got a case out of Louisiana that has to do with forming districts and whether or not a majority-minority district is somehow unconstitutional. And so this is all part of the Voting Rights Act, where to address past wrongs and making sure that minorities are able to have the candidate and vote for the person of their choice, districts have been redrawn. But now, if this drawing of districts to make sure that minorities have that same voting power, if that all gets dismantled, first of all, whole districts disappear, which means whole seats disappear, which means folks' voting ability becomes diluted. And what happens when your voice isn't heard? Yeah, you don't have a seat at the table when it comes to policy impacting your life. So Kelly, now that I've kind of given the state of play, give me your thoughts, girl, because this is a lot.
Voting is a fundamental right. And so if you believe in democracy, if you believe in people have a right to exercise their right to get out there and vote, then you would not want to limit it. You wanted to make sure that people exercise this right. Going to the first case in Mississippi, as you pointed out, there's a lot of people for different reasons, whether they're overseas, or we have people who are protecting our country, who are fighting overseas, that make the ultimate sacrifice. And now potentially, depending on how the Supreme Court is going to rule, they need to factor in, oh no, I don't need to get my ballot mailed on Election Day. I have to count in how long is it going to take the mail service, the postal workers, to serve my mail? Is it going to take 5 days? Is it going to take 2 weeks? Are they going to have their ballot in time so when they receive the ballot to make sure it's sent? So hypothetically, if someone gets a ballot a month away and they fill it out and then they mail it, is it going to be counted? Is it not going to be counted? I would urge everyone, please, that's listening to this, check to make sure that you'll be able to vote this election. I know a lot of people think, oh, I'm registered, it's all good. It doesn't hurt. It takes 5 minutes to go online. We will connect you with a link to just double check, just to make sure that your fundamental right, that you have the right to do it and there's no issues, or if there is any issues, that you can check and make sure that everything's okay. So when we talk about that case, we're waiting to hear what the Supreme Court does in the Mississippi case, but it's been reported that it tends to lean towards the way that the Supreme Court is going to put restrictions on the timing of when exactly it has to be received, whether it's on election day, it must be received. Now, we have to remember that this is not only Mississippi, but numerous other states as well. And each state has a variation of how long someone can have their ballots received in order to count. So this could definitely affect you even if you don't live in the state of Mississippi. So be proactive, make sure that you know exactly where you need to poll.
But before we get to the redistricting, I want to throw in some stats because you're so on point with that. Well, first of all, we're going to drop a link, for you to be able to check. It's vote.org. That's one of my favorite organizations because they are nonpartisan. So it doesn't matter what party you are, right? You can go put in your information, find out the process to register if you haven't done that, all of that. So we'll make sure to share that with you. But just to put a finer point on this vote by mail initiative was something that was actually pushed by this president, number 47, when he was 45. Right? Because he won. We're in the midst. Remember, COVID was just starting to kick off, all of that. So he wanted to make sure people voted for him. So he was like, yeah, mail-in voting is a move. Also, Charlie Kirk, he's another one that pushed heavily for mail-in voting. All of a sudden, it's bad now? Interesting. Let me give you a stat. Nevada, 2024 election. 2 deeply red like my earrings, red counties had some interesting outputs. So you had Douglas County, where 63% of the voters cast their votes by mail. In Nye County, the number was 58%. And both counties voted in favor of the president by more than 30 percentage points. This president, not talking about anyone else, this president. So this is something that benefited him. I wonder why he's trying to end it now. Riddle me that. Back to you, Callie.
That is the $64,000 question that you bring up. So when we talk about the other case that you were talking about based on the Voting Rights Act, and we have to remember John Lewis, because this would not be in existence without him. I had the privilege to see him when I was lobbying for Congress one day, and there was a young gentleman that went up to him, and you could see on his face, I believe, the scars of him being brutally beaten. His skull was damaged, but this young African-American boy came up to him and said, it's an honor, it's a privilege to meet you, what you did, the sacrifice you did. And you could see John Lewis, the pride on his face. He has passed on, and it saddens me, disheartens me that the Voting Rights Act is slowly being dissipated, is slowly being taken away, because if you believe in democracy, you want to make sure that people are fairly represented, that people have the access to the polls. And it saddens me that potentially this could have detrimental effects on the people in the state of Louisiana, where in fact that they are not adequately represented by people that's supposed to represent their interests, that are supposed to represent their state.
Yeah. And not only is it heartbreaking from the legacy perspective of how many people, you think about the Edmund Pettus Bridge, you think about all of these key moments in civil rights history that all culminated in the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Acts being passed. Countless people were lynched, were murdered, were brutalized for these laws to come into being to protect everyone equally. And now you got Justice Kavanaugh sitting up on the bench talking about, well, race-based remedies are good for, a certain period of time, but it shouldn't be forever. Should we sunset some of the provisions of the Voting Rights Act because, we've solved racism. There's nothing to see here. Everybody's being represented equally. There's no issues. So again, we come back to the goal, which is disenfranchisement, taking away people's voices, making it harder to vote. We are a democracy. The bedrock of our democracy is one person, one vote. So when you take away that ability for people to vote, the ability for them to be able to choose who should represent them, making sure that their vote is counted. Because if you're like, well, my vote doesn't count or my vote won't be counted, what's going to happen? You're not going to vote. And the less people that vote means only a small minority of people dictate what happens in a state, in a city, or in the country at large. Kelly, you get the last word on this one.
So get out there, exercise your fundamental right, and vote.
If it wasn't so important, they wouldn't be trying to take it away from you. With that, I'm Melba Pearson, also known as the Resident Legal Diva. She's Kelly Hyman. Thank you for tuning in. Stay safe, stay informed, and keep demanding justice. Take care.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.